Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Anonymous, and in this channel, we talk about the truth about gang stalking. So, programming is real. Your perceptions can be messed around, and however, there is one thing that I'm not sure about perceptions. So I am not sure if perception of reality is one thing that it just turns around, or if it is cumulative. As in, it is done one by one until all your reality, your perception of so many things are already twisted that it is almost impossible to not be confused any longer. So, in order for me to get out of this and to restore my perceptions, I have been having to be incredibly aware of my perceptions of everything. And I want to share with you how I did that. So, I remember that in the past, I would look at a headlight and I would assume, that it was a gang stalker because, the headlights were on during the day, which seemed logical. That was my reasoning. And, when you don't hear voices, it's really hard to know what you're thinking because it is like a subconscious thought. The thought is there, but you don't hear it. When you are hearing voices, you are able to hear your thoughts. However, I didn't quite understand this yet. Now, one day, I was just looking, and making observations. And I noticed that, when I wasn't not connected, I noticed that headlights were still on. And then, my car has daytime running lights, which are like lights that are during the day. And then I began looking outside and I began paying attention to other cars. And, a lot of cars had daytime running lights. So I was like, why am I assuming that every car that has the lights on during the day are a gang stalker? I also noticed that when I would be at Starbucks, for example, and at work, cars would park in front and they would leave their headlights on and leave the car. And I never noticed that. However, what I did notice recently actually was that I noticed a car parked by the window at work. And then the car literally just like turned on the headlights and then got out of the car and went into the store. So I saw a guy literally arrive to the auto parts store with the headlights off and then park, turn on the headlights, and then enter their store and do some shopping. No one does that except people who are actually trying to mess with you. Gang stalkers. So it is all about confusion. And the moment that you are not confused anymore, it, the moment that you're not confused anymore by anything, it you come back to normal. So, well, going back to where I was talking about, I didn't. So, when I made the realization that everyone has their headlights on, a lot of people have lights on during the daytime, and every time I would think that people that had the headlights during the day were gang stalkers, I would remind myself, oh, remember there's daytime running lights, and then it increases visibility. It's on the DMV manual. You can have your headlights on because that way people see you. So, because I wasn't able to hear my thoughts, I was only having the thought. I really didn't understand the mechanism by which your perceptions are built. But because I actually enjoyed hearing my thoughts, especially when I was confused, hearing my thoughts allowed me to hear my perceptions. It allowed me to be able to see and to hear the thought of the perception of what I was looking at. For example, I was driving on the freeway, and then all of a sudden, a car was tailgating me, and it went in front of me, and then it had the turn signal on, and he never made the turn. So I remember I made the connection when I was just, after that happened, I had a flashback of what just happened, where I was simply thinking, oh, that car might be following me, and then went in front of me, and then the car turned its turn signal on, and then I heard, when are you gonna turn? He's doing it on purpose. He must be a gang stalker. And boom, it dawned on me. Those are the perceptions. So what I began doing is replace the thought of the perceptions of the things that I was looking at. So there was a moment where I was replacing my perceptions of everything. So when I would see, when a gang stalker would do the hand signal, I would say, that's meaningless. Or I would imagine Kirby saying hi, or I would imagine myself put a picture in my mind of when I was incredibly hot, of me working out. I was messing with my perceptions. And one day I would be saying, every time I would think anything that is gang stalking related, I would say meaningless. Whenever I would interpret something as being part of a gang stalker, even though I still felt the pull in my throat of anger and or anguish, I still said meaningless. So then it was strange because my mind, there was a point where my mind was not angry, where I wasn't, the hand signal wasn't making me upset. The turn signals weren't making me upset. I wasn't even thinking about gang stalking. But I still had the physiological sensation of anger. And I was like, well, that's weird. So what was left was only the connection that my mind had with the pain. So whenever I would look at a turn signal, I would feel the pull in my throat automatically. There didn't have to be any thought. There didn't. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm calm, but I am still feeling anger. That's weird. I'm not angry. And that's when I began noticing a lot of things. Like when I went to work, and let's say when I went to work and I was having a conversation, it was normal. And then the customer would say a word that meant that you know, that I guess triggered me, that I thought triggered me. I noticed that my coworkers were banging. Bam! I was like, okay, that's weird. I did not notice that before. Like at the point where I was supposed to be upset, they were making banging noises. So then I was like, okay, so that's when I realized it is not the word that is making me upset. The sounds, the bangs, for some reason, produce a sensation of anger in my body. And then I had flashbacks. I had flashbacks to the beginning, where gang stalkers would say something that would bring me a negative memory. Whatever. Or foot. Because I had a very bad foot problem at that time. So whenever someone would say the word foot, you know, it would bring up the image of my foot with a ugly toenail, and I would feel bad because I would feel that everyone would know that. So whenever anyone would say that word foot or wear sandals, boom, they would do the banging sound. And I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there was, in the very beginning of this channel, I shared it with you, where I would actually feel that the sounds would activate the word, and that is what would produce the negative emotion. That somehow the word and the bangs would bring up the emotion. You know, I wasn't wrong. The sounds were bringing the negative emotion. I just didn't know how that worked. But when you see something that made you think, that made you have a bad memory, and then someone would actually make a sound right at the moment where you feel anger, there is another point of confusion where you don't know if the word is actually making you angry, and you know, I didn't think that there would be that my body would be actually be getting upset by the sound. So and then I was like, well, why is that happening? If I'm not mad, the word that the person is saying, it doesn't make me upset. I only get upset when they start banging. So then I noticed that my coworkers began, that every time I would hear keys jingle, every time I would hear banging sounds, the sound itself would be what would create the feeling of anger in my body. Um, and it gave me the impression that, well, like I told you guys in another video, perceptions are continuously being made really fast. They change incredibly fast. Like, it's insane how fast perceptions can be changed. Um, so whenever I would, whenever a someone would say "what the fuck" and then bang, anytime I would hear another banging sound, my mind would play the vocal that the person said, the "what the fuck," which means that they are making new perceptions. So then I realized that that's how they're making me hear voices at random points. Like whenever I would see a car like speed by with an engine really fast, you know, I would be paying attention more to what thought I was having, uh, to to what was I hearing whenever a something really noticeable happened. So, for example, when I would sing at the gym, I would hear the word "shut up." So then that explained. So my perceptions, my hearing perceptions, was that I perceived someone telling me to shut up whenever I would be singing. So whenever I would even think of a song, I would hear a voice say "shut up." Now, when you receive sound, like someone talking to you, there is a particular vibration on your ears when they're detecting sound. So they kind of vibrate in a particular manner. That and that's how it interprets the words, the sound, by its vibration. And so, whenever I would have the thought of "shut up," my ears would vibrate in the same manner that it did when it received the word "shut up," which causes any other sound that would come into your ear at the time where your ears are vibrating. Guess how it's going to be interpreted? It's going to be interpreted as "shut up." So, using that same reason, in the beginning, when gang stalkers would raise their voice and say, you know, I don't know, charged or whatever, not charged, bottle. Let's keep using that example because it's the easiest one. Remember that they used to raise their voice, but guess what? The ears vibrate at like if they were perceiving the sound when it was being said really loud. So my ears would actually vibrate as if they were perceiving a louder sound. And because of that same vibration, my ears, even though the sound I was receiving wasn't bottle, the fact that they said the word bottle, and the fact that my ears vibrated in a way that would intake loud, a loud accentuation of the word, I would, even though the person wouldn't be lifting or wouldn't be raising the voice when saying the word, I would hear them raise the word. I would hear them say it like if it was meant to hurt me. So I don't know how long no one has actually said a word that is meant to uh to produce a psychological disturbance. But my mind, because of all the programming, has been perceiving it that way. Now, the point of this was that um, whenever I was, I perceived someone following me, right? If the moment I would see a car right behind me, because it was a similar enough event that my eyes were catching, my mind would trigger that car is following me. The fact that I was now able to hear my voices, that I was able to hear, um, that I was able to hear my perceptions, made me aware of all the perceptions that I had. So, for like a week, I had to stop every single gang stalking perception from happening. I had to look at whatever it is that I was looking at and think nothing, or think that that's just a hand sway. It doesn't mean anything. And I did that for a couple of days, and it took like 4 days before those perceptions actually, before my brain actually took those in and stopped producing the anger. So I literally had to change all my perceptions until there were enough perceptions being normal, to the point where the switch happened and I stopped perceiving everyone as a gang stalker. So, yeah, there is a way out of gang stalking, and you just have to have the right perceptions. You have to be able to understand what perceptions are. You have to understand how they work. You have to know what they are, and you have to know what is the right perception to have. When someone, a gang stalker, is trying to confuse you, or when you have the smallest inclination that someone is trying, that is a gang stalker, you just think, fuck you, you're an asshole, fuck you, I hate you. And that's it. And you don't think, you don't start ruminating about, was he a gang stalker or not. You just don't care. You're like, fuck you, I don't care what you do, I don't care about what you're trying to confuse me, fuck you, fuck you. And that's a perception that stays. And with time, your perceptions are solid, they're real. And anytime you perceive someone trying to mess with your mind, you're going to respond in the best possible manner, which is a good amount of anger. However, not a anger that makes you feel like you're less. You only have the enough anger that makes you, that fuels your will to stand up for yourself. Anyways, that's all I have to say for today. Thank you guys. Bye.